I'm over here like, get out. Like, I'm just being honest.
Boundaries are compassionate. They help preserve your relationships rather than destroy them through the development of resentment.
What's great about boundaries, it just makes the relationship more honest. And wouldn't you as a parent, at the end of the day, really want that honest relationship with them?
A big piece of advice that I have is that the boundary has to come from the child.
Because there will be moments where you do have to choose. That sucks, but it's part of growing up. It's part of being a human.
One thing that people really fail to notice and understand.
Welcome to What Your Therapist Thinks. I'm Felicia Keller Boyle, licensed somatic therapist.
And I'm Kristie Plantinga, and I've been in a lot of therapy. We are so happy to have Mary Beth on the show today. We are talking about mother and son enmeshment. Anytime the in-laws are involved in stuff, the Reddit post gets spicy, understandably. So I think we'll have some fun today going over that. But before we dive in, a little intro on Mary Beth. Mary Beth Somich is a licensed clinical mental health counselor with 10 years of experience providing therapy to children, teens, adults, and families. Mary Beth specializes in family dynamic work, enmeshment, boundaries, anxiety, transitions, and trauma. Mary owns a group practice called Your Journey Through in Raleigh, North Carolina. Mary Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so excited again to get into this topic. Maybe more people recognize, again, this is focusing on the mother-son dynamic, but I think a lot of people can maybe relate to some of the stuff that comes up and maybe they'll see it in their own relationship. But my understanding of this topic, based just on the nature of how people are searching, more so it is a significant other asking about this relationship as opposed to, and I did find one that I wanted to go over about the son themselves talking about his experience as well. But yeah, I think that was kind of the angle that I was just noticing online. So,
oh, definitely. That's the most common inquiry that I receive these days because I've kind of created a specialization in enmeshment, and it's typically wives reaching out of wives of sons who are enmeshed with their moms.
Yeah, I've been seeing that online. But before we get into some of the Reddit posts that I found, I do want to get just kind of some definitions down. One of the things that we are trying to do in this podcast is debunk some of the pop psychology kind of stuff. You know, things like narcissism, you're toxic, stuff like that. Really getting a professional's opinion on this stuff. I think enmeshment is kind of less commonly referred to in pop psychology, but can you please explain to us what is enmeshment?
Yeah, a lot of people have never heard this term. It's definitely therapy speak. However, the way that I like to describe it most simply is it's a family system that's lacking boundaries. So there's just a lack of that individuation, differentiation that typically happens in adolescence. I actually started out as a teen therapist, and I noticed over time some of my clients, because I've been doing this for 10 years, as they grew up, as they got engaged, started dating, got married, had babies, these are life circumstances that really bring out enmeshed dynamics. And if that healthy differentiation doesn't happen in adolescence developmentally, it sets them up for enmeshment.
So is it fair to say that if enmeshment is sort of like one side of the spectrum, then healthy differentiation is sort of the other side of the spectrum?
Yes.
And then I guess if that was like the virtuous mean, then like the other extreme of that would be like totally disconnected, isolated, completely independent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For the non-therapist in the room, what is healthy differentiation?
Yeah, so in adolescence is when it should developmentally occur, and it's when a teen separates from their family in terms of individuating. So they might say, my family does things this way, but that doesn't fit right for me. I really resonate with this instead. What happens is there's this thing called the parent identity development model. And so when mom becomes pregnant, let's say, and this is true for dads too, they fit into the parent identity development model. But when we learn that we're pregnant, we kind of create this picture in our mind of the child, right? Oh, maybe
Mm.
my child will have blonde hair, or they'll be really good at soccer, or they'll be heterosexual, or they'll be Republican, right? Like there's a
Mm.
lot of like identity markers that we think about or assume even unconsciously. And
Mm.
then we bring this little life into the world, and guess what? They don't fit all those
They're not the
boxes.
next Messi, which my husband is like counting on. Speaking of healthy differentiation.
Yeah, yeah. So there that weaves into enmeshment and healthy differentiation because the parent might be really stuck on, oh, my child needs to be this
Mm.
way and have trouble accepting who the child is instead. And then there's more control over molding them into who they really need them to be. But I
Mm.
also don't want to overlook this deeply relational component of enmeshment as well. One thing that people really fail to notice and understand, they always blame mom for the mother-son enmeshment. They're like, she's
Mm.
the problem. She won't take her claws out of him. She's overly reliant on him. And we're focusing on mom because there are a lot of problematic behaviors coming from the mother. What many people don't understand is that typically enmeshment arises when a mother is not getting her emotional needs met from her partner.
Mm.
And what I see a lot in heterosexual couples is the dad or the father has really retreated emotionally and is not giving to the relationship emotionally. And so mom is getting those emotional needs met through her children,
Mm.
specifically sons, even more than daughters.
Why do you
Mhm.
think that is?
That's a good question. The maybe the lack from the male and then the reliance on the male, like it could be a sex and gender component. It very well
Mm.
could be. There's also kind of this like cultural, and who knows, it's chicken or the egg, right? Is it
Mm.
biology? Is it sex and gender, or is it culture? But you'll
Mm.
see all this cultural jargon about like mommy's little boyfriend or best friend or
Mhm.
mama's boy and I'm a boy mom, and a lot of that lending to some unhealthy attachment patterns.
Right. And there are also some cultures where I think this is very normed, right? For
Hmm.
if you come from Italian heritage, this might be more noticeable, or maybe like Mexican heritage. Like there are some cultures where this really deep connection, really strong connection between a mother and a son is like the norm.
I'm really glad that you brought up culture because there are specific cultures where enmeshment is more common. I
Mm.
see it a ton in Catholic families, Jewish families, and Indian
Mm.
families. Those are a lot of the common cultures where I'll get referral requests from.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think that's what makes it tough when that sort of thing is normalized, or even when you are in that kind of enmeshment relationship, it's often rewarded in a way because it
Mm.
feels really good to make your parent happy with you, you know? But then at the end of the day, and we'll get into this in some of the Reddit posts, it can be very destructive for other relationships in your life as well.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a few phrases that stick out to me too when we talk about enmeshment. Like, we're just so, so close. We're like the closest family. We do everything together.
Hmm.
Or family is everything. Or another big one to look out for is like behavioral patterns that don't really make sense to people outside the family, but inside the family, we say, well, that's just the way it is and how it's always been. And so we're going to keep doing it that way,
Mm.
even if it doesn't make sense because it's serving someone's needs, usually the mother's.
Do you have an example of this just to make it more real? Like, what is something you've seen in your work as a therapist where you're like, this is so normal for this family, but it is very confusing to everyone else?
Sure. I mean, a classic one that comes up time after time is, we have to spend Christmas with my family, right? There's just no
Mm.
other option. Like, this is what we do. We're the closest family. We spend Christmas together. I can't go anywhere else for Christmas. It's always
Mm.
been this way. I've never spent a Christmas away from my family. And then there comes a Christmas where maybe they have let's say that's the husband, because we're going with mother-son enmeshment right now. And then the wife is like, but what about my family? What if I want to spend a holiday like Christmas with my family? Or they have kids and they're like, it makes the most sense to stay at home and have Christmas here rather than travel across the country to your family. I will say there aren't a lot of enmeshed families that live across the country from each other. However, it does
That makes a lot of
happen.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to be enmeshed if you're
Yes.
have states between you.
Right. So holidays are a big point of contention in enmeshed families.
I'm guessing this also comes up in cross-cultural relationships, right? If two people are not from the same background and maybe one person's background is more collectivist, they come from a family that has those really deep, strong connections, and they're partnered with somebody who comes from a culture that is more independent. And I could see there being misunderstandings and clashes there where one person's like, I just truly don't get it. Like, why would you have to do this? And the other person is equally like, how could you not understand this? Of course, I have to be with my family on the holidays. And just, I think also as a therapist, that's something that we're always having to look at our own biases and our own culture when we're working with clients and check, like, what are the norms that I'm holding for myself, and is that actually relevant to this client? So we're having to do that. Couples are having to consider that with each other or not, right? And that can probably lead to a lot of conflict.
Yeah. And I want to say you can come from a collectivist culture and still be healthily differentiated. Right?
Absolutely.
So that can, one partner from a collectivist culture, one partner from more of an individualist culture can exist and work and compromise and be great. And there may be no enmeshment in that dynamic. It's just a difference. But the key marker of enmeshment is that lack of healthy differentiation, lack of healthy self, and lack of healthy relationship between the two, the parent and child, or parents and child.
Interesting. When we think about, obviously, an enmeshment dynamic can happen outside of family too, with, friendships and, all sorts of different ways. Is there anything that, other than maybe some of the cultural things we've discussed, that's unique to the mother-son dynamic with enmeshment?
I would say maybe role reversal, like the son acting more like a partner or a caretaker rather than a child. I mean, that can be, I guess, parent-daughter too. I see that a lot as well. I think a lot of daughters become like therapists often to their mothers or their parents.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah. It's honestly, most of us, like people in the therapy world, were at one point therapists to a parent. I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see. Guilt. I think of like guilt for independence, but that can come up in friendships too. If someone's really codependent, they might guilt you for having some intrusion on your autonomy, even wanting to be like deeply involved in decision making. There's a lot of similar themes, I would say, but maybe that role reversal in the parent-child dynamic.
That makes a lot of sense. And I have noticed, I think a lot of times, and again, this is just based on my limited research, but a lot of times the mother is a single parent as well. And I think that definitely leads to, just wanting more of that energy and that kind of, very, again, a lot of this stuff is tough because we're generalizing with a lot of this, but maybe more of that kind of traditional male caretaker, like you've been saying with the son, and especially if, it's a single parent, just, wanting that, which I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting it, but to then kind of force that on your child, that's probably...
Yeah, it's inappropriate and it's unfair to the child too. And I will go along with that generalization. I don't often see enmeshment in families where there's a really healthy couple dynamic, mom and dad. It's usually dad's absent emotionally or physically, or single mom. And there is that over-dependence, over-reliance on the child to meet the needs.
Obviously, enmeshment is bad. It's not a good thing. But maybe how can someone recognize this going on in their own relationship and maybe talking about the bad parts of it? I definitely think that I personally have been in some of these dynamics. And like I was saying before, it can feel really good because you're the good guy, you're reliable, like, oh, I'm taking care of you. It's very rewarding in many
Uh-huh.
ways, but what are the downsides of being in a dynamic like this?
Yeah, people really struggle with healthy adult relationships outside of their family in this
Mm.
context. So, like I said before, it's usually wives reaching out to me and saying, like, I can't handle this anymore. Like,
Mm.
my mother-in-law's at my house every day. She's trying to come over constantly. She's like texting my husband nonstop, asking him for things. Like,
Mm.
there's just so many symptoms. And usually it's the partner of the enmeshed child that notices this is not healthy. This is not serving to our family dynamic. And it really
Mm.
prevents the adult enmeshed child from creating their own nuclear family. They're so
Oh.
stuck in their family of origin that they don't make that transition to becoming, in this case, husband, father. They're still
Mm.
stuck in the role of son. And
And
that's,
then it can continue to perpetuate in a way, right? Because it's
yes.
like then they're not as engaged in their primary relationship with their partner, and
Hmm.
that other parent might go seek some more support from one of her children. It's like I could see how enmeshment can just kind of
Mm.
get passed down from generation and generation in
Mm.
this way.
Exactly. It's usually multi-generational. Like a lot of families I work with will present me this dynamic, and then I'll learn, oh, well, grandma lived with us when I was growing up. Like the partner might say that. And I'm like, well, that makes sense, right? Like, so there's a lot that just patterning multi-generationally too.
Right. And of course, it's not always the case that folks can't live multi-generationally, like, and
Right.
not be enmeshed. To your point earlier about being
Yeah.
from a collectivist culture is not synonymous with having enmeshed relationships between parents and children.
Mhm.
Totally.
Um, it's really not about being connected or being from this culture or that culture. It's about maybe like the harm that's being caused, the ability to make independent decisions, the ability to connect with your partner and with your own children and like really
Mhm.
value that and
Yeah.
prioritize that.
I would say like the most common symptoms are emotional over-reliance, right? Feeling responsible for a parent's happiness or emotional stability and then acting accordingly. And
Mm.
then that role reversal that we talked about, right? Needing a son acting more like a partner, and that's not an
Mhm.
appropriate role. Yeah, guilt for boundaries or
Mhm.
autonomy or independence, and then that difficulty with establishing other relationships that are supportive.
Yeah, I imagine the boundaries thing is really big because if you're not used to having them, why would you have them in any other relationship? Unless if the boundary is more like, oh, I have to like go see my mom right now. Boundary, I'm
Yeah.
not going to the movies tonight with you. But that's more kind of like consequential rather than I'm choosing to set this because it's best for me kind of thing.
Yeah, one of the primary things that I said, like, the partner will come to me often, but sometimes the child does. The child will recognize like this
Hmm.
is all consuming, it's not healthy, it's harming my relationships, etc. And one of the things that I first do with them is ask them like, what are your wants and needs? And I swear, 9 out of 10 times, usually 10 out of 10 times, they have no
Like, I
idea
don't
what
know.
they're. Yeah, it's the hardest question for them. They're like,
Interesting.
well, I've never been able to choose my own wants and needs. They've been prescribed to me by
Mm.
my mom. So that is a big kind of come to Jesus moment, for lack of better terms. Like,
Mm.
wow, I don't know who I am outside of my parents' wishes. And that's why I mentioned the parent identity development model and how it integrates into this.
Thank you so much for those definitions. I think we should get into our Reddit posts. This is in the, of course, the subreddit in laws. Is there any hope in a relationship with mom enmeshed man? My 4-year relationship has been hijacked by my boyfriend's enmeshed family. The enmeshment revealed itself over time. My mom enmeshed man is in complete denial and is grooming his adult children to enmesh with him. We live together, and it has slowly sculpted our daily life. I truly give him 100%, but still my needs are last, at times ignored. Naturally, he doesn't see it this way and feels guilt that he doesn't see or do enough for his family. The constant communication and involvement all day long with entire family and almost daily visits aren't enough. No boundaries or privacy. I feel stalked. They do not allow him to fully commit to me or any of his past relationships. Actually, not one of them, including siblings, has successful relationships because they do not allow it of each other, not allowing each other to grow and be the best they can be, as if they should only be loyal to each other. His mother manipulates all of them every single day, and they see it as normal. The word enmeshment is new to me, but now makes total sense. Is it possible for him to ever see what this does to him, me, and us, his adult children? He only gets mad when I try to explain, as if I'm the villain for not participating in his codependent enmeshed family. It has completely wrecked my self-worth, not understanding and trying to navigate through this craziness. I'm at a loss.
I'm over here like, get out. Like, I'm just being honest. I'm like, just move out, get out. Like, Mary Beth, I mean, this is your thing, so I really want to hear what you have to say.
Are we giving the stereotypical breakup Reddit advice?
I mean, okay, wait, you're nodding too, Mary Beth. So are we?
So I was just nodding because I'm not a couples counselor because I don't have the patience to do couples counseling. I think I would be someone who's like, you guys are just not good together. Not specifically in this case, but I love the family dynamic work. It feels much different to me. Yeah, I think that she's going to have a real challenge with this if he is in such denial and so resistant and villainizing her for even having a discussion about it. Like, he is deeply entrenched in enmeshment. And you know, a partner has to at least be curious. If there's no curiosity, it's really hard to move that needle. And when there's no curiosity, she's kind of left with one choice, and that's her own boundaries around it. Like, does she choose not to engage with his family? Does she choose not to be home when they come over? And that's a lot of work. It sounds really
It sounds like it's
intense.
already a lot of work.
Yes, exactly.
I want to know, what are the comments saying? Do they agree with this? Or is there anyone who's like, I don't know, have you tried? Like, so my specialty in my practice, one of them was codependency. And I feel like one of the things I would say to my clients again and again is like, this is the person you're with, right? Like, you can't change your partner. And so you may be right that their behaviors are ridiculous and not okay, but you also don't get to choose their behaviors. So at a certain point, if you've tried again and again and again to have the conversation, to initiate change, and they are just not willing, if you can't be okay with who they are, then you may be at the end of the relationship. So that's my take. I want to know, like, are other people saying get out? Do they have ideas of what to try next?
What's interesting is a lot of the comments are like, I'm in this same situation too. Let me know. So definitely less advice. There has been you need to cut your losses. It's only been 4 years.
4 years is a long time to be doing
I
this.
think 4 years is a long time too. I mean, the longer you're with someone, obviously, the more, to use this word in a different way, enmeshed your life becomes with the other person. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of empathy from other people. A lot of them are just saying, end it, leave, runner. And one person was not very nice and said, I'm embarrassed for you. So that's not
Wait,
very
what?
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is there to be embarrassed about? I mean, it's like you're just.
I think some people go on Reddit just to troll other people, just to not be very nice. But
Yeah.
we ignore those.
Yeah. Well, success. That's super mean, and they're
My
struggling,
partner says,
so.
don't feed the trolls. Just don't.
Yeah.
I think this person was like super kind and compassionate in how they described the scenario. They weren't like, they're evil. Like, granted, they're obviously upset, and they like didn't always use like the most neutral terms, but it seemed to me like they went out of their way to really attempt to describe objectively what's going on and not just be like, these people are terrible. Like, they were just like, this is what's going on. I really appreciated that. It makes me think that this person has really tried to see it from their partner's perspective, but is really just at the end of their rope and, can't really take living this way anymore.
Yeah. We've mostly been focusing on this one-on-one relationship, but it sounds like the whole family. The whole family is involved in this. So then it's just you versus this whole, it's almost, I mean, she used the word cult. I think she did, this kind of like cult-like mentality. I mean, one person
Like
versus
nobody's
a cult.
getting out. Nobody's leaving. No one gets a new family
Yeah.
or a relationship. Yeah, that stuck out to me too. The fact that like none of the siblings are in partnerships is like, that's pretty strong signal that like there's something going on in this family. They're all kind of drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, to use cult analogies.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mary
Exactly.
Beth, do you see this where it's like a whole family a
Oh, yeah.
lot?
Yeah, I get fed enmeshment content often because it's my
She's on Enmeshment Talk. It's
yeah,
fine.
basically, it's like my algorithm now. So there was a woman who had just had a baby and she decided, I don't want any visitors at the hospital. Well, how do you think that went over with her enmeshed in-laws, right? They
Bad.
like want to be in the room
Yeah.
watching
They're
it.
like delivering the baby.
Yeah.
They got their
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, literally. And this is a very common one that comes up in enmeshed families around birth. But I really noticed and acknowledged, like, she was sharing about how her sister-in-law was mad about her boundaries because the in-laws had been in her delivery room shortly after. And I was like, well, clearly she wasn't okay with that, but she was forced into it by these like traditions, and this is just how we do it. And now she's resentful, and she's projecting that resentment onto her sister-in-law, saying like, well, you have to fall in line too.
It's like
I
hazing
did that.
her.
Yes, literally hazing. And it's just another layer of that, like, well, this is how we do things. You have to do it. Fall in line. You can't set boundaries. It's not okay. So yeah, it can be kind of like a whole team mentality against someone. It's like team
That seems
family
like-
X.
If it's one person versus this whole group, it's so hard to hold your ground, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another piece of this is, let's say, you know, the enmeshed son is ready to acknowledge the enmeshment. He sees how it's hurting his family and his partner and the establishment of his nuclear family and prioritization of them. There's a lot of unnamed grief in his experience of finally setting boundaries and getting that backlash from your family who you really love and have always like been serving consistently and getting that positive reinforcement, and then all of a sudden it's so negative. I see a lot of partners that are like distraught, deep in grief, like I can't handle this level of hostility from my family. And that's a really hard place to be. So I want to make sure that there's support for that too, because they are really stepping up and trying to differentiate and prioritize their new family, their significant other and children. And
That makes so much sense. That like because it seems to me like the element that's consistent here is control, right? Like it seems like part of the goal of enmeshment is to control someone else's behaviors so that one person can feel good emotionally. It's like
Secure.
it makes
yeah.
me right. They can feel secure. They can feel good emotionally. They're kind of looking for someone else to behave in a particular way in order for them to feel good. And so it's like, if that's essentially been the coping strategy, like I don't have to find other ways to feel good because I'm basically just counting on you to always do what I want you to do. And then you don't do that. Like, of course, I am super upset. I probably don't have the skills to manage my own emotions because you've been my source of managing my emotions. And now you're the enemy. You've taken away the thing that I've been relying on that's been keeping me steady, that's been keeping me okay. Almost like the love, quote unquote, has so much to do with control. And is maybe not at its source a generous love. It's a love with lots and lots of conditions. And it makes sense that like that's not actually a very deep well of love at the end of the day. And if that gets challenged, it can really flip into like controlling and angry. Villainizing, yeah.
yeah, that's a really painful realization throughout this process. I have seen couples really come out on the other side of it and actually be able to reestablish healthy relationships with their in-laws, because the goal here is not to sever the bond or the tie with your family. Like I really want to emphasize that because I see so much content on social
break
media
up.
about like, yeah,
The
break up,
break up.
Go no contact.
Yeah.
Yes, go no contact, right? Yeah, and it's really to shift from overdependence to just a healthier connection with your parents so that it's not that controlling, contingent love and it is more generous. So, Yeah, that's hard. A lot of enmeshed families, like there's this idea around them, like we're special because we're so
We're
close
so
and we do,
close. It's so
yeah, like
special.
we're like a
Yeah.
special family. And then that partner is going to ruin that specialness, right? And he's going to get punished for it. And so the wife of that partner needs to also be ready for that kind of backlash towards him too.
Yeah. ugh, God, just thinking about the weight of that, that like
Hmm.
you're responsible for this family falling apart when it's like, oh my gosh, it's like,
Yeah.
I just want to do Christmas with someone else this year, you know?
Right. I still love you.
Yeah. A big piece of advice that I have for couples in this situation too is that the boundary has to come from the child,
Yeah.
right?
Don't
So it
blame the
has,
wife or
right.
the husband. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a sign to me that the husband isn't ready. If he's telling his wife, well, then you tell him you're not okay with it, right? And then they just are going to
And
turn
they're
on the
not a
wife.
team,
Right.
right? They're not a team. It's like the primary allegiance is still to the family of origin, and they haven't made the primary allegiance to their partner. And of course, like no one wants to be in this situation, like obviously, but there are times when there are differences. And like a person does have to choose, like, where does my primary allegiance lie? Am I really coupling with that person and saying, like, you are my person? It's us first. Or am I like making a sort of halfway commitment to this, but still at the end of the day, it's always going to be them first? Because there will be moments where you do have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that sucks, but it's just the reality of like diverging from it's part of growing up, it's part of being a human.
Definitely.
Healthy differentiation.
Oh, nice.
which is-
She's catching on.
I'm like, I'll be the A student. I will remember all of these terms.
You are such a good therapy A+ student. Yes.
Thank you. With my therapist, I'm like, am I your favorite? But it's like, well,
You're like, you can tell
Can't
me.
say that.
You can tell me. I won't tell anybody else.
I know, right? I'm the worst. But yes, this next example is about the child who's in this enmeshed relationship. And this is a question about boundaries. So very much a how-to, which is always very, very helpful. This is from the subreddit Internet Parents. How do I set boundaries with my emotionally enmeshed mother? Hi, everyone. Please help if you can. I'm a 25-year-old female. My mom is a 58-year-old female. I am seriously starting to lose it with my mother and fear that I'm going to lose more time of my life to this dynamic, as it is taking a significant toll on me. For context, my mom is very attached to me and needy. She is single and doesn't really have close friends. I'm also an only child. Thus, my mother depends on me as her emotional outlet. She's overly focused on me despite saying she has a full life, etc. I feel like she expects me to be her cheerleader, and if I forget something, she will take it as rejection and say, why didn't you wish me luck on XYZ? She constantly has something going on. I cannot keep track, and it's really draining to constantly be on cheerleader mode. I wished her good luck. We spoke on the phone, but she expected me to text her that day. Anyways, it's a lot of stuff like this. The other day, I tried to set boundaries, and she said, you hate me, you hate everyone, you're trying to drive a wedge between me, just like your dad, you need to grow up, stuff like that. And then she gives some more examples about how she, was traveling for a couple months, and obviously that sure didn't go well, having that physical distance. So anyways, long story short, how does this person start to set some boundaries in this relationship?
Get out. No, I'm kidding.
No contact.
No, I don't know that that's my advice, but yikes.
Yeah. Well, there's a few steps here. First, the awareness that this is happening and naming it, which I think this child has already done just by finding this Reddit thread on enmeshment, right? Like she is naming, this is not healthy. This is enmeshment. Therapy to support her in really becoming equipped to set boundaries and also to deal with the fallout of those boundaries, because it sounds like whenever she's already tried to set them, mom is villainizing her for doing so and really not responding well. So establishing a support system with a therapist and, anyone else who can kind of empathize and support her through this transition in a healthy way transition to differentiation is what I'm referencing, is definitely recommended. And then as far as setting boundaries, I think there's a way to do this that can help make them more successful sometimes. I have a freebie download on it, and maybe I can send it to you guys to link in like show notes or something.
Absolutely. We will put that in the show notes.
I call it the boundary setting blueprint. So there's 3 steps. I try to make it as simple as possible because honestly, boundaries are received better when they're short, clear, and concise. We don't want to give like lengthy paragraph explanations of why we're doing something.
So that doesn't
like,
work, you're saying, Mary Beth? Because that's been kind of like my
It just
thing.
gives...
Let me apologize 15 times, and then I'll tell you my boundary.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
That gives people like things to argue with in my experience. Yep. Is that right?
Exactly. It's exactly what it does. Like, let me counter whatever excuse you're giving me so I can make you do it again. Like, we don't want to give that opportunity. So it's called the boundary setting blueprint, and it's a 3-step method. It's super simple, pretty clear and concise. It's kind of like a sandwich. So you start with validation and you say, so let's say the situation is mom wants to come over and cook dinner 4 nights a week for you and your wife. And you're like, no, that's way too much. That my wife's not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. That's not good for our family. And so what you're going to do is start with validation, step 1, and say, I really love that you've offered to cook dinner for us. That's supportive. Then boundary. However, it's not supportive 4 nights a week, right? That's our boundary. I can't do that 4 nights a week. However, then you come toward with step 3 of like, what would be okay with you? What is I don't want to call it a compromise, but what would work? And then maybe you say, we could do dinner with you on Thursdays, right? If you want to come over and cook on Thursdays, that would be supportive. So validation, boundary, and then come toward with something that is okay with you. I will say sometimes that 3rd step is just not available, right? Like sometimes it's just a boundary and there isn't something to come toward with, especially if it's like a hard no for you.
I love that advice. I love that there's not an explanation. And I think sometimes someone might ask, well, why? In my experience, when that question is being asked in that way and it's not coming from a place of genuine curiosity, like, oh, I'm just curious, like, why? I'm open to whatever you have to say, but I'm asking you because I want to hear what you say so I can then argue with what you just said, right? If that is the reason why someone is asking that question, then in my experience, it's best to just kind of repeat what I just said. It doesn't work for me, or it doesn't work for us for you to come over every night. Yeah, but why? Like, I mean, I'm making you food. Like that.
Yeah,
what do you
you're
mean?
welcome.
You don't want me to make? Yeah, you're welcome. I'm making you food. Yeah, Mom. And I love that you care, that you want to make us food. And like I said, that doesn't work, but we would love for you to come over on Thursdays. Can you do that? Right. And it's just kind of like you stick with that plan because that person is not asking you because they are curious and just want to have a interesting conversation with you. They are asking because they are looking for ammunition and anything that they can argue with. Don't take the bait. Don't do it.
No. And I always want to reinforce, like, people that are not accepting of your boundaries, it just reinforces that you were validated in setting them or having to set them, right? Like, take that as validation rather than guilt.
Right.
So it's almost a signal, hey, you're actually doing a good job right now, even though obviously the reaction isn't pleasant, but it's a good sign actually if you get pushback.
Yeah, that the boundary was really needed.
Yeah. And I feel like one of 2 things will happen here over time. Like, your parent will either over time decide that it is worth it to them to have a different kind of relationship with you, and they will start to accommodate that more easily, or the relationship will actually deteriorate. That's like the choice you're making at a certain point. Is it worth it to me to go through the discomfort of doing something that is going to upset my parent? Is it worth it to me to not really know how the relationship is going to change? Like, I've gotten used to it being a certain way, but like, it's definitely going to look different if I stick with these boundaries, and just being willing to go through that journey. And the sad truth is that in some cases, parents do have really strong reactions and they're like, you're dead to me. I mean, that is very extreme, but it does on occasion happen. But I think probably hopefully more often than not, if you're consistent with your boundaries and you do what you're saying, Mary Beth, of like expressing like the what's also true, which is you love and care about your parent and you do appreciate them. And like when they're like, oh, you're doing this because you hate me. And you can say like, actually, that's not true. I don't hate you. I love you. And I would like for you to just come once a week instead of 4 times a week.
Yeah, boundaries are compassionate. They help preserve your relationships rather than destroy them through the development of resentment. If she's coming 4 times a week, you're resentful. You're like, oh, she's coming again. Like, you're not enjoying her, right? If it's once a week and that's your boundary and that's your capacity, then you actually might enjoy her visit. And isn't that what she wants to? Is it? Or does she
And then you find out, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you find out that that's the case, like she's not actually doing it because she loves you. She's doing it because
She needs
she
you.
needs you to regulate her emotions. And of course, it's never just one or the other. We evolved to need each other and to need connection. But there's a difference between, like, again, that healthy connection, like healthy dependency and codependency, and enmeshment and healthy differentiations. Like, how can you form a new kind of relationship with your parent where you can love each other in a way that actually feels good for both of you? And that's going to be a discovery process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to speak to equipping parents with this language that they may not have, right? Like sometimes it doesn't go well when you're like, I think we're enmeshed and I need boundaries, right? There's probably some pushback.
Like, what is this millennial nonsense? Like,
Right. Yeah. But you know what? One of my like proudest moments as a therapist was a couple that came to me. They were in their mid 60s and they were like, our son and his wife are telling us that they think that we're enmeshed and they are not inviting us to see our grandchild as much as we'd like to see them. And that really hurts us. And we would like to work on this with you and figure out how we can maybe be better parents or have a better relationship. And I was just like, oh my gosh, goals. Like we're already off to a great track. Like, and so I want to just share that is possible. I have worked with adult parents, boomer parents, that really value their child more than the dynamic that is serving them.
Absolutely. I want to shout out my mom for this. Like, she is a great example of this. We were definitely enmeshed when I was growing up and even into my young adulthood because she's a single parent. I'm the oldest of 2 girls. My mom worked really hard, was working all the time. And absolutely, I was kind of like second mom, kind of like spouse role in a way. And as I got older, I started making more and more boundaries with her. And I remember my mom telling me, like, my mom had some friends who cared so much more about their principles that when their kids did things that they didn't like, they basically cut their children off. And my mom was like, you are more important to me than like any choice you could make. Like having a relationship with you is more important to me than any choice you can make. And so over time, I've been able to change our relationship, and it's absolutely been hard at times, but she was actually willing to do things differently. And like, she's also made a bunch of other really incredible changes. I'm so proud of her. She's like proof that adults in their later years can absolutely transform themselves. So I hope that's hopeful. We now we have 2 examples of older adults, and I'm sure there are many, many more. So comment on this episode if you've had experiences where your parents have been making changes with you, if they've been willing to change the nature of their relationship with you. We'd love to have your hopeful stories because there are going to be people listening to this who are in the midst of maybe not having that experience and would love to hear about success stories. So share them in the comments.
like, there's no way my parents would do that. It's like, maybe. But that's the thing. I think, what's great about, boundaries and other things like that, it just makes the relationship more honest. And I remember I said that to someone once where they're like, I could never, talk to my dad about this. And I was like, that makes me kind of sad at the end of the day because you're not going to have that honest relationship with them. And wouldn't you as a parent at the end of the day really want that honest relationship with them? So, yeah.
And some parents do. And
Yeah.
the sad truth is some parents don't. You know, I think it takes a certain degree of like psychological like resiliency and like robustness to be able to do that. Like you can't be so psychologically, emotionally fragile that you can't change and update. So yeah, it's just like some people are not going to be willing or able to do that and other people are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's emotional maturity too. And you'll see that in enmeshed families when the parent is doing that role reversal thing of like, oh, I need to be taken care of. And you're putting their child in the role of parent. Like that's a sign of emotional immaturity because it's not appropriate. So like it just depends on, the level of emotional maturity that where your parents are at too.
All right. Last post. I think this is our spiciest one, and I'm very interested to hear what you both have to say. This is in the subreddit Enmeshment Trauma. Experience of mother enmeshed man projecting their resentment of mother onto their partner. I'd like to know if others here have experienced this, particularly women in relationships with mother enmeshed men. I am no longer with this person, but I find it helpful and healing to hear others who may have gone through a similar experience, more especially because at times I felt like I was growing crazy and feeling that my ex resented me in some ways for showing up as loving and kind. I often got the impression he was irritated by my presence alone, even over text or phone calls. A few months into us being together, he opened up about his overbearing relationship with his mother and how cold she would often act towards him if he did something she didn't like or without her approval. Later on in our relationship, I began to feel at times like he hated me. He'd just ignore me so easily, get irritated if I suggested plans or a phone call, etc. I felt delusional because I asked myself what reasons I'd ever given him to treat me with such disdain, especially when I always ensured I showed up as caring and supportive. When there was ever any issues I wanted to discuss with him, I always made sure I let him know first off that I wasn't coming from a place of criticism, particularly when he had shared how critical his mother was of him at times. I'd sometimes gaslight myself into believing I was being paranoid or insecure, but looking back, I just know with certainty how I felt at times was very valid. It just felt like he'd ignore or avoid me instead of his mother. Is this resentment projection a thing?
I don't hear a ton about enmeshment in this post. I hear a lot about their relationship and communication dynamics. So yes, it can be a thing, resentment projection, but I need to know more about their dynamic and his dynamic with his mom to know if that's really what's going on. Or, I mean, it could be that she's more critical than she hears herself being too. Like that's a possibility. And we have to consider all possibilities too. So yeah, I guess that would be my take.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mary Beth. I don't feel like I heard enough to say like, yeah, totally enmeshment. I'm also just curious about like how these people manage to stay together. It kind of sounds like he just doesn't like her. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like he doesn't like his girlfriend. So I'm like, what happened? How did these people not break up? Like why? How do we get here?
Yeah, she could be experiencing rejection sensitivity. Like that's a symptom of some other things. Like there's a lot or he could just not like her, like you said. So
yeah, which I hate saying, but it's like, yeah, if he doesn't like you and you're trying so hard, maybe be with somebody who likes you more. But what do the comments say?
So I'm going to get into some of these comments, but I think what I'm getting from what you're saying is maybe this isn't the whole picture, which definitely happens obviously on Reddit because it's self-reporting, but also maybe this is more of a relationship thing between the couple than the mother and the son. So a lot of comments are saying, yeah, like this sounds exactly like me. And they recommend the When He's Married to Mom book. So I think a lot of people relate to this sort of thing, but again, maybe there's something else going on in this kind of situation with like the projection.
You know, Reddit has knocked it out of the park several times on this podcast, but I think this is one of those places where having an actual therapist will really, really make a difference. Like, well, having a therapist always makes a difference, but this is a place where Mary Beth and I were both like, we don't have enough information here. Like, we're not able to say like, yes, this is enmeshment. Like, this is where having a therapeutic relationship and being involved in that process could be really helpful. Mary Beth, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think the people resonating with that experience are probably in enmeshed relationships, sure. And resentment is a really common experience between the couple when one partner is enmeshed with their family. So I can totally see a lot of overlap, but again, we need more information.
Yeah, and what's interesting is one man does kind of admit to this a little bit. So he talks about his relationship with his mom, who has borderline personality disorder. You know, obviously that's a very difficult relationship to maintain if that person isn't receiving treatment. But he says, as you can imagine, there are a lot of mixed feelings with me and mom, and not a little bit of resentment either. And there have been times in my marriage that a lot of those feelings were transferred to my wife at various points and for various reasons. In my case, and I'm sure it's different for everyone, there are specific triggers. When she does certain things that my mother used to do that made me feel taken advantage of. Typically, if I can name it, I can stop myself from acting out, but my wife says I'll still get pretty passive aggressive sometimes. I'm always trying to do better, recently started meditating, and that seems to help.
I feel a lot of compassion for this person. That seems really sweet, like the work he's doing.
Yeah, I would agree. And also say that this is happening in couples with no enmeshment dynamics. Like there's that whole adage, like you marry your parent and they're gonna do things that trigger you or remind you of things. Everyone comes from a parent dynamic, and it comes out in relationships and marriage sometimes. So
Yeah, it makes sense to me that we don't have quite enough information, because really all we got from the boyfriend was that he described his mother as overbearing. That's what we got. So maybe full enmeshment, maybe not. And I think if someone describes their parent as overbearing, they're kind of aware that, like, I don't like this, you know?
That's a good point. We would have to like really interrogate and assume a lot of things in order
Yeah.
to like make a call. And so yeah, just not possible to know.
Could
Yeah.
be a situation, and, you know, more in like the pop psychology side of things where, oh, it's because my mom is toxic, or oh, it's because my boyfriend was narcissistic or whatever. Could this be one of those situations where you're just trying to kind of make sense of something in your mind, like, how did this happen? And maybe this person landed on enmeshment. And again, maybe it's absolutely going on, but what do you think?
it totally could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that happen a lot, especially with a lot of psych terms being thrown around.
My first thought was like, it sounds like this person doesn't like you very much. And like, of course, that feels terrible. No one wants to acknowledge that, especially because she's really, really trying. You know, she is like, obsessive feels too strong, but like she is trying very, very hard and seems like monitoring her own behaviors and feelings a lot. It must feel terrible to be putting in all of this work and trying so hard and then feeling like even when you're being kind, your partner's annoyed with you. So it makes sense that, you know, you don't want to tell yourself, well, I think this person just doesn't like me. Let me go find a problem with this person and their mom, right? But it may just be he's not that into you. You guys remember that book / movie?
I remember the movie.
Like, yeah, I frankly kind of loved it, you know, as a person who was dating and struggling in dating relationships and trying to figure it out. Like, I think it was really helpful to hear, like, yeah, sometimes someone just doesn't like you that much, but like, just go find someone else, you know, who does, because they're eventually you will. Right. So often when we're uncomfortable, we look for ways to label people so that we can kind of create a rationale for why we're having this painful experience. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's what's going on. And sometimes it's just so we don't have to deal with the pain that this just sucks.
Yeah.
So, Mary Beth, we love to just ask at the end what you really think about this topic. Speaking as yourself, not in the therapy room, what do you really think about mother-son enmeshment?
I think it's a beast. It is so challenging and so difficult to go through as a partner. And I hand it to the people who are ready to do the work and invest in the relationship and get hopefully to the other side, even if the other side is not the ideal relationship, but it is just setting harder boundaries, because it can look really different. But it is no small feat to navigate. You're challenging a system that might be decades long in existence or more. Yeah, so I've seen it work though. I've seen people come out the other side really a lot stronger from it, both in their relationship, like as a couple, and with the family of origin too. So there's hope.
There is hope.
And hopefully soon our comments will be filled with stories of hope like we're asking. So comment on this episode, share what you're going through, share with friends who need to hear it. Maybe don't share with your partner who you think is enmeshed. Probably not the best. Probably not the best first move. But comment with your own stories of hope or what you're going through right now.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth. We really, really appreciate your expertise in all of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
And how can people find out about you and your practice?
Yeah, they can go to yourjourneythrough.com. We have a contact form, an online booking, and you can also find me on Instagram at yourjourneythrough.